Imagine being told that your dreams are impossible. Imagine being laughed at for ideas that sound insane. Imagine risking everything you own, not once but again and again, knowing that failure could destroy your reputation, your fortune, and your future. Now imagine doing it anyway, because this is not the story of a man who played it safe. This is the story of a man who repeatedly walked toward uncertainty, while the rest of the world ran away from it. A man who would help reshape electric cars, private space exploration, artificial intelligence, online payments, and the future of humanity itself. But before the rockets, before the billions, before the headlines and controversies, there was a lonely boy. A boy who often felt like he didn't belong. A boy who escaped reality through books. A boy whose greatest weapon wasn't money, power, or influence. It was imagination. And what happened next would change the world forever. To understand Elon Musk, you have to travel back to a very different time. Long before he became one of the most recognizable people on earth, he was just a child growing up in the city of Pretoria, in the country of South Africa. At first glance, his childhood appeared ordinary, but beneath the surface, something unusual was happening. While many children spent their days focused on games and entertainment, Elon became obsessed with learning. Books became his refuge, they became his escape, they became his teachers. He didn't simply read a few pages, he devoured entire worlds. Science fiction, fantasy, history, technology, philosophy. The more he read, the more his mind expanded beyond the limits of his surroundings. His imagination traveled far beyond the streets outside his home, far beyond his city, far beyond Earth itself. As other children dreamed about becoming athletes, musicians, or movie stars, Elon found himself fascinated by questions that most people never even considered. How does the universe work? Could humans live on other planets? Why are things the way they are? And more importantly, how could they be improved? Those questions would eventually define his life, but during childhood, they often made him seem different, sometimes painfully different. Elon was quiet, deeply analytical, often lost in thought. He could spend hours thinking about ideas that seemed strange to everyone around him. Many people misunderstood him. Some saw him as awkward. Others saw him as distant. But inside his mind, an entire universe was forming, and that universe was growing larger every day. School wasn't always easy. In fact, some periods were extremely difficult. He experienced bullying that left lasting scars. There were moments when he felt isolated, moments when he felt powerless, moments when he wondered where he truly belonged. For many people, experiences like these create limits. For Elon, they created fuel. Every challenge pushed him deeper into books, deeper into learning, deeper into imagining a future that looked completely different from his present reality. He wasn't trying to fit into the world around him. Without realizing it, he was preparing to build a new one. One day, something happened that revealed just how different he really was. At an age when most children were still figuring out basic hobbies, Elon became fascinated by computers. This wasn't merely curiosity. It quickly became obsession. Computers represented possibility. They represented creation. For the first time, he could build something entirely from his own imagination. There was one problem. Programming wasn't easy, especially for a young boy teaching himself, but difficulty rarely stopped Elon. When he encountered obstacles, he often responded by diving deeper, learning more, working harder, and so he began teaching himself computer programming, hour after hour, day after day. The glow of screens became a gateway into a world where ideas could become reality. While others saw machines, Elon saw opportunity. Eventually, that curiosity produced something remarkable. At just 12 years old, he created a video game. To many people, that might sound like a small achievement, but consider what it represented. A child wasn't just playing games, he was building them. He wasn't consuming technology, he was creating it. Even more astonishing, he managed to sell the game. The amount of money wasn't the important part. The lesson was, an idea from his mind had generated real value in the world. For the first time, he experienced the power of creation. The realization that imagination could become reality. That lesson would stay with him forever. Years passed. His interests expanded. His ambitions grew. But one thing remained constant. He felt drawn toward bigger possibilities. The world around him seemed too small for the ideas forming inside his mind. He wasn't just interested in making a living. He was interested in changing the future, and that required a larger stage. A much larger stage. The opportunity arrived in the form of a difficult decision: leaving home, leaving familiarity, leaving the life he had always known. Many people spend their lives staying where they are comfortable. Elon chose uncertainty. As a young man, he moved away from South Africa and began pursuing opportunities abroad. The journey wasn't glamorous, it wasn't easy, and it certainly wasn't guaranteed to succeed. There were financial struggles, moments of instability, moments when the future looked unclear. But Elon possessed a quality that would define nearly every chapter of his life. He was willing to endure short-term discomfort in pursuit of long-term goals. Most people see obstacles and stop. He saw obstacles and kept moving. His path eventually led him to Canada. For many young people, moving to a new country is already a life-changing challenge. For Elon, it became another step towards something larger. He worked various jobs, he adapted, he learned, he observed. And all the while, his ambitions continued expanding. The world was changing rapidly. Technology was advancing. The internet was beginning to emerge as a transformative force. Most people had no idea how dramatically it would reshape society. But Elon sensed something. He sensed opportunity. The kind of opportunity that appears only once in a generation. The internet wasn't merely a new technology. It was a new frontier. And frontiers attract dreamers. Eventually, he continued his education and journeyed to the United States. For Elon, America represented possibility. It represented innovation. It represented the chance to pursue ideas at the highest level. But dreams alone don't guarantee success. Reality was waiting. And reality can be brutal. The young man arriving in America was not a billionaire. He wasn't famous. He wasn't influential. He was simply ambitious, extremely ambitious. He studied intensely. He absorbed information relentlessly. And he kept asking himself the same question. How can technology improve the future? That question became an obsession. As the internet boom accelerated during the 1990s, opportunities seemed to appear everywhere. New companies emerged almost daily. Investors rushed into technology. The atmosphere felt electric. But hidden within every boom lies uncertainty. No one truly knows who will succeed. No one truly knows who will fail. And failure was waiting around every corner. Elon faced a choice. Follow a conventional path or take a risk. A very big risk. The safe option would have been understandable. Get a stable job. Build a comfortable career. Avoid unnecessary danger. Millions of people choose that route. There is nothing wrong with it. But Elon was not interested in comfortable. He was interested in impact. So he made a decision that would alter the course of his life. He stepped into entrepreneurship, not because success was guaranteed, but because possibility was irresistible. The early days were far from glamorous. Long hours became normal. Stress became constant. Resources were limited. Every decision mattered. Every mistake carried consequences. Yet something remarkable happens when people become obsessed with a mission. They begin enduring things that others cannot. Sleep becomes optional. Comfort becomes irrelevant. Persistence becomes everything. Elon threw himself into building, learning, improving, adapting. The journey had begun, but nobody knew where it would lead. Not investors, not competitors, not even Elon himself. Because hidden ahead were triumphs that would make headlines around the world, and disasters that could destroy everything. The stakes were about to become much higher. The risks were about to become much larger. And the young dreamer who once escaped in the books was about to make his first serious attempt at changing the future. What happened next would launch him into the ruthless world of technology startups. A world where fortunes are made and lost overnight. A world where brilliant ideas die every day. A world where only the relentless survive. And Elon Musk was about to discover whether his dreams were powerful enough to survive reality. The difference between dreamers and builders is simple. Dreamers imagine a better future. Builders risk everything to create it. And as the internet revolution accelerated across the world, Elon Musk was preparing to make his first real move. The timing could not have been more important. The world stood at the edge of a technological transformation. Businesses were beginning to realize that the internet was not a passing trend. It was becoming the foundation of a new economy. Yet most people still didn't understand how powerful it would become. Many saw websites as little more than digital brochures. Others dismissed the internet entirely. But Elon saw something different. He saw a future where information could move instantly. A future where businesses could operate in entirely new ways. A future where technology would reshape nearly every aspect of human life. And he wanted to be part of building it, not watching it, building it. Together with his brother, Kimball Musk, Elon launched his first major company. The vision was ambitious. The resources were not. The company operated under conditions that would make many people quit immediately. Money was scarce. Comfort was non-existent. The pressure was relentless. There were days when survival itself felt uncertain. To save money, Elon often slept in the office. The workplace became home. The office couch became a bed. Showers were sometimes taken wherever they could find access. This was not the glamorous startup lifestyle often portrayed in movies. This was sacrifice. Pure sacrifice. While others enjoyed stability, Elon was gambling his future on an idea. And ideas are fragile. They can collapse at any moment. Every entrepreneur eventually faces the same terrifying question. What if this doesn't work? What if all the effort, stress, and sacrifice lead nowhere? Those questions haunted countless founders during the internet boom. But Elon kept moving forward, day after day, week after week, month after month. Slowly, the company began gaining traction. Customers arrived, interest grew. Momentum started building, the impossible began looking possible. And then something extraordinary happened. The company attracted serious attention. Attention led to opportunity. Opportunity led to growth. Growth led to a life-changing outcome. For the first time, Elon experienced a major business success. The company was eventually acquired. Suddenly, the young entrepreneur who had once slept in an office possessed something he had never had before: capital, resources, a platform. Many people would have stopped there. Many people would have celebrated. Many people would have taken the money and chosen the comfortable life. After all, wasn't that the goal? Wasn't financial freedom enough? For Elon, the answer was no. Not even close. Because money itself was never the mission. The mission was what money could make possible. And his ambitions were growing faster than ever. Most entrepreneurs spend years searching for one successful idea. Elon was already thinking about the next. The internet economy continued evolving rapidly. New possibilities emerged almost daily. One particular industry caught his attention: banking. Financial services had remained largely unchanged for decades. The system was slow, complicated, inefficient. Elon believed technology could transform it. So he jumped in. Again, another company, another risk, another opportunity to fail. This new venture focused on digital finance. Today, online financial services seem normal. But at the time, many people found the concept difficult to trust. Would people really manage money online? Would they trust digital transactions? Would traditional banking ever change? These questions created enormous uncertainty. But uncertainty often creates opportunity. Elon pushed forward aggressively. The company evolved, adapted, expanded. Competition intensified. The pressure grew, yet something important was happening beneath the surface. The internet was changing consumer behavior. People were becoming more comfortable online. The future was arriving faster than expected. Eventually, a merger brought together powerful forces within the emerging digital payment space. The result would become one of the most influential financial technology companies in history. PayPal. Today, millions of people recognize the name. But during its early days, nothing was guaranteed. The company faced fierce competition, technical challenges, leadership conflicts, market uncertainty, and the ever-present threat of failure. Many startups disappear without leaving a trace. PayPal survived, then it grew. Then it exploded. As online commerce expanded, digital payments became increasingly important. Suddenly, the company found itself at the center of a massive transformation. The value of the business skyrocketed. Investors noticed, competitors noticed, the entire technology industry noticed. Then came another turning point, a moment that would permanently change Elon Musk's life. PayPal was acquired. The deal created enormous wealth for many people involved. For Elon, it represented something even more significant: freedom, the freedom to pursue ideas that most people considered impossible. At this point, many individuals would have retired. He could have lived comfortably for the rest of his life. No more risk, no more uncertainty, no more sleepless nights. The story could have ended there, but Elon wasn't interested in ending the story. He was interested in starting a much bigger one. And this is where things become truly unusual, because most wealthy entrepreneurs look for opportunities with high probability of success. Elon began focusing on ideas with an extremely high probability of failure: electric vehicles, private space exploration, renewable energy, artificial intelligence. At the time, many experts viewed these areas as unrealistic, impractical, or financially dangerous. Investors were skeptical. Business leaders were skeptical. The public was skeptical. Yet Elon kept returning to a simple question: what problems are most important for humanity's future? That question changed everything. Instead of asking how to maximize profit, he asked how to maximize impact. And the answers led him towards some of the most difficult industries on Earth. One of those industries was space. The very word sounds intimidating. Space is unforgiving. Space is expensive. Space destroys mistakes without mercy. Historically, only governments possess the resources required for major space programs. The idea that a private company could compete in this arena seemed absurd. Many people laughed. Others dismissed the concept immediately. Industry veterans predicted failure. Experts explained why it couldn't work. Critics listed endless obstacles. But Elon had spent years reading science fiction, years imagining humanity among the stars, years thinking about the future of civilization. He believed humanity needed to become a multiplanetary species. Not someday, eventually, as soon as possible. To most people, that sounded like fantasy. To Elon, it sounded like necessity. There was just one problem. Building rockets is incredibly expensive. Launching rockets is incredibly risky. And starting a private space company from scratch bordered on insanity. Yet that is exactly what he decided to do. The company would be called SpaceX. The vision was breathtaking. The challenges were terrifying. Failure was considered almost inevitable. Industry insiders doubted the company could survive. The odds looked terrible, but Elon had never been motivated by easy odds. He was motivated by possibility, and possibility often hides where others refuse to look. At the same time, another industry captured his attention: transportation, specifically cars. The automotive world had remained largely dependent on gasoline for generations. Electric vehicles existed, but many people viewed them as slow, unattractive, and impractical. The conventional wisdom was clear. Electric cars would remain a niche product. The future belonged to traditional manufacturers, but Elon disagreed completely. He believed electric vehicles could outperform gasoline cars. He believed they could be desirable, powerful, exciting, revolutionary. Most importantly, he believed they could help create a more sustainable future. That belief would eventually connect him to a company called Tesla. At the time, few people could have predicted what would happen next. Because both SpaceX and Tesla appeared incredibly risky, either one could fail. Either one could destroy his fortune. Either one could damage his reputation permanently. Yet Elon was involved with both. At the same time, the stakes had never been higher. The risks had never been greater. And the world was about to discover whether vision alone could overcome reality. Because dreaming about rockets is easy. Building them is not. Dreaming about changing the automotive industry is easy. Actually doing it is another story entirely. The years ahead would test Elon Musk in ways he had never experienced before. His money, his reputation, his emotional resilience, his ability to survive failure. Everything would be pushed to the limit, and very soon disaster would begin knocking at the door. Success can be dangerous, not because it destroys people, but because it convinces them they are invincible. By the mid-2000s, Elon Musk had already achieved what most entrepreneurs spend a lifetime chasing. He had built successful companies. He had accumulated significant wealth. He had earned recognition within the technology world. From the outside, his future appeared secure. But behind the headlines, he was making a decision that many considered reckless. Instead of protecting his fortune, he was pouring it into some of the most difficult businesses imaginable. SpaceX needed money. Tesla needed money. Both companies faced enormous technical challenges. Both companies required massive investments. Both companies were fighting against industries that were larger, richer, and far more experienced. Failure was not merely possible, failure seemed likely. Yet Elon kept investing again and again, because he believed that some missions were worth the risk. The problem was that belief alone doesn't pay bills. Belief doesn't manufacture rockets. Belief doesn't build cars. Reality eventually demands results. And reality was coming fast. At SpaceX, the team was attempting something many experts thought was impossible. They were trying to build affordable rockets capable of reaching orbit. The challenge was staggering. Rocket science is often used as a phrase to describe something difficult. There is a reason for that. Every component matters. Every calculation matters. Every second matters. One small mistake can destroy years of work. One small mistake can turn millions of dollars into fire and debris. SpaceX engineers worked relentlessly. Long days became longer nights. Deadlines approached. Pressure intensified. The dream was finally approaching its first major test. The launch of the company's Falcon 1 rocket. Years of effort. Years of sacrifice. Years of risk. All leading to one moment. One launch. One opportunity. One chance to prove the skeptics wrong. The countdown began. Excitement filled the air. Hope mixed with anxiety. Then reality struck. The launch failed. The rocket did not achieve its mission. Years of work ended in disappointment. For most companies, such a failure would be devastating. For a young private space company, it was even worse. Money had been spent. Confidence had been shaken. Critics felt validated. The doubters grew louder. Many people predicted the end was near. But Elon refused to quit. He pushed forward. Another rocket, another attempt, another chance. Failure had delivered a painful lesson. Now they needed to learn from it. Months passed. The team regrouped. Engineers analyzed every detail. Mistakes were examined relentlessly. Eventually, another launch opportunity arrived. Again, expectations rose. Again, hope returned. Again, the world watched. And once again, disaster struck. The second launch failed. The situation was becoming serious. Very serious. Investors were nervous. Employees were exhausted. The financial pressure was mounting. The dream of building a successful private space company appeared to be slipping away. Yet Elon remained determined. Many people would have accepted defeat. Many people would have walked away. But persistence had always been one of his defining traits. He believed that failure was not the opposite of success. Failure was part of the path. So SpaceX prepared for another attempt. Another rocket, another launch, another chance to survive. The third launch carried immense weight. By now, critics were openly questioning whether the company had any future at all. The pressure was overwhelming. Everything seemed to depend on this moment. The rocket lifted off. For a brief moment, hope returned. Then tragedy struck again. Failure, a third failure. 3 launches. 3 disappointments. 3 painful reminders that reality does not care about ambition. The situation became catastrophic. Money was running dangerously low. Confidence was collapsing. The company stood on the edge of destruction. SpaceX was approaching a point where another failure could mean the end. Not a setback. Not a delay. The end. And as if that wasn't enough, problems were also growing elsewhere. Tesla was facing its own crisis. The vision of electric vehicles sounded inspiring. Actually building them proved far more difficult. Manufacturing challenges emerged. Costs increased. Deadlines slipped. Criticism intensified. The company burned through cash at an alarming rate. Every problem seemed to create 2 new problems. Investors worried. Media scrutiny increased. Skeptics predicted collapse. Many analysts believed Tesla would never become a serious automotive company. Traditional automakers appeared untouchable. The odds looked terrible. Yet Elon continued fighting on 2 fronts simultaneously. SpaceX was struggling. Tesla was struggling. His resources were shrinking. The pressure was becoming unbearable. People often imagine entrepreneurs living glamorous lives, private jets, luxury homes, endless comfort. But behind the scenes, Elon was facing one of the darkest periods of his career. Stress followed him everywhere. Every day brought new problems. Every week brought new uncertainty. Every month raised new questions about survival. Then came 2008, a year that would become legendary for all the wrong reasons. The global financial crisis shook economies around the world. Markets collapsed. Investments disappeared. Businesses failed. Fear spread everywhere. Access to funding became increasingly difficult. For companies already under pressure, conditions became even worse. And SpaceX and Tesla were already under extreme pressure. The timing could not have been more brutal. Elon found himself confronting a terrifying reality. His fortune was rapidly disappearing. The wealth created by previous successes was being consumed by ongoing battles. Every dollar seemed committed to keeping his companies alive. The margin for error vanished. Friends worried. Observers questioned his judgment. Many believed he had pushed too far. And perhaps they were right, because the situation became so severe that Elon reportedly faced the possibility of losing almost everything. Not just part of his fortune. Almost all of it. Think about that for a moment. A man who had already achieved extraordinary success was now staring into the possibility of financial ruin, not because he lacked intelligence, not because he lacked opportunity, but because he was pursuing missions that were unbelievably difficult. Most people never face such a choice. Protect what you have, or risk it for something larger. Elon chose risk, again, and the consequences were terrifying. Inside Tesla, employees fought to keep the company alive. Inside SpaceX, engineers worked desperately to solve technical challenges. Everyone understood what was at stake: jobs, dreams, careers, years of effort. Everything hung in the balance. Then came a moment that would become one of the most important turning points in Elon Musk's life. A final opportunity, a final chance, a final test. SpaceX prepared a 4th Falcon 1 launch. There was little room left for mistakes. The company had already endured multiple failures. Resources were running out. Another disaster could destroy everything. The pressure was almost unimaginable. Engineers checked systems repeatedly. Teams reviewed every detail. Every lesson from previous failures had been incorporated into this moment. Now all that remained was execution. The countdown began. The world watched. Employees watched. Elon watched. Years of sacrifice stood on the launch pad. Years of risk stood on the launch pad. Years of dreams stood on the launch pad. The rocket lifted into the sky. Higher, higher, higher. For a moment, nobody knew what would happen. The tension was unbearable. Everything depended on the next few minutes. And what happened next would determine whether SpaceX became a historic success or a forgotten dream. It would determine whether Elon Musk's greatest gamble ended in triumph or catastrophe. It would change the trajectory of multiple industries. It would alter the future of space exploration itself. And it would arrive at the exact moment when he needed it most. Sometimes, the entire future of a company comes down to a single moment, a single decision, a single opportunity, a single launch. For SpaceX, that moment had arrived. The fourth Falcon 1 rocket was climbing through the sky carrying far more than machinery and fuel. It was carrying years of sacrifice, years of criticism, years of failure, and perhaps most importantly, the final hopes of a company standing on the edge of collapse. Inside mission control, tension filled every second. No one wanted to celebrate too early. They had been here before. Hope had been crushed before. Dreams had been shattered before. Everyone knew that rockets can fail at any moment. Success is never guaranteed. The vehicle continued climbing. Systems performed as expected. Stage separations occurred. Critical milestones were achieved. Minute after minute, the mission continued. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for. The rocket successfully reached orbit. For the first time in history, a privately developed liquid-fueled rocket had reached orbit. The room erupted. Years of frustration exploded into celebration. Engineers cheered. Employees embraced one another. Many could hardly believe what had just happened. Against overwhelming odds, SpaceX had survived. But survival was only the beginning. The success changed everything. Suddenly, critics were forced to pay attention. The impossible had become reality. A company that many expected to fail had achieved something extraordinary. And almost immediately, another breakthrough followed. SpaceX secured a major contract from NASA. The agreement represented far more than money. It represented validation, confidence, credibility. The world was beginning to recognize that SpaceX was not simply another startup. It was becoming a serious force in space exploration. For Elon, the victory arrived at exactly the right time. Because Tesla was still fighting for survival, the company remained under enormous pressure. Production challenges continued. Financial concerns persisted. Public skepticism remained intense. Many people still believed electric vehicles could never compete with traditional automobiles. The idea sounded unrealistic. Consumers were accustomed to gasoline engines. The automotive industry had spent generations perfecting them. Why would anyone switch? Why would anyone take electric cars seriously? Tesla needed more than promises. It needed proof. And proof is expensive. The company's first vehicles generated excitement. But scaling production proved far more difficult than anyone anticipated. Building a few impressive cars is one challenge. Building thousands of them consistently is another. Factories are complicated. Supply chains are complicated. Manufacturing at scale is incredibly complicated. Every weakness becomes visible. Every mistake becomes costly. As Tesla pushed forward, problems appeared from every direction. Deadlines slipped. Costs increased. Critics grew louder. Articles questioned the company's future. Analysts predicted failure. Short sellers bet against the stock. Many believed bankruptcy was inevitable. Elon faced relentless pressure. He wasn't merely managing a company, he was carrying a mission. A mission he believed could transform transportation forever. The stress became overwhelming. Employees later described periods of extreme intensity. Long working hours became normal. Urgency became constant. Every day felt critical. Every week felt decisive. And despite all the challenges, Elon refused to lower his ambitions. Most leaders become more cautious after surviving near disaster. Elon often became more aggressive. He continued investing in innovation, continued pushing boundaries, continued chasing goals that seemed impossible. This approach produced both admiration and criticism. Supporters viewed him as visionary. Critics viewed him as reckless. Depending on the day, both perspectives appeared reasonable, because the truth was simple. Extraordinary goals create extraordinary risks, and Elon rarely chose easy goals. As Tesla struggled to establish itself, something unexpected began happening. Customers became passionate. Not merely interested, passionate. The vehicles delivered. Experiences that challenged assumptions. Electric cars could be fast. Electric cars could be exciting. Electric cars could be desirable. This was not what many people expected. For decades, electric vehicles had been viewed as compromises. Tesla was changing that perception. One customer at a time, one vehicle at a time, one breakthrough at a time. Slowly, the impossible began looking inevitable, but the journey remained far from over. Because success often creates new challenges, growth creates complexity, expansion creates pressure. And Tesla was about to experience both on a massive scale. Meanwhile, SpaceX continued advancing rapidly. The company wasn't satisfied with reaching orbit. That was merely one step. The larger vision remained unchanged. Reduce the cost of space travel. Expand human presence beyond Earth. Eventually enable life on other planets. The goals sounded outrageous, yet SpaceX had already proven that outrageous goals should not be dismissed too quickly. The company developed larger rockets, more capable systems, more ambitious missions. Each achievement pushed the industry forward. Each achievement challenged conventional thinking. Each achievement reinforced Elon Musk's reputation as someone willing to pursue ideas others considered impossible. But reputation can be a double-edged sword. The more visible he became, the more scrutiny followed. Every statement attracted attention. Every decision generated debate. Every success created headlines. Every mistake created headlines too. The world was watching closely, and visibility comes with consequences. As Tesla and SpaceX expanded, Elon transformed from entrepreneur into public figure. His words influenced markets. His opinions generated controversy. His actions became global news. Supporters praised his boldness. Critics questioned his methods. Some saw a visionary genius. Others saw an unpredictable disruptor. Few remained neutral. Yet regardless of opinion, one fact became increasingly difficult to deny. His companies were changing industries. SpaceX was reshaping space exploration. Tesla was accelerating the adoption of electric vehicles. The impact was becoming impossible to ignore. Then came another ambitious project. A project focused not on transportation through space, but transportation on Earth. Elon began discussing revolutionary ideas for high-speed travel systems, concepts that seemed drawn from science fiction. Many dismissed them. Others became fascinated. The pattern was familiar. Whenever Elon introduced a bold vision, skepticism arrived first. Acceptance often arrived later, but perhaps the most controversial conversations centered around artificial intelligence. While much of the world focused on immediate technological trends, Elon increasingly discussed long-term risks and opportunities. He believed advanced AI could become one of the most transformative forces in human history. Potentially beneficial, potentially dangerous. The implications were enormous, and once again he found himself thinking decades ahead. Thinking beyond quarterly results, beyond immediate profits, beyond conventional business strategies. Whether people agreed with him or not, one thing remained clear. He was obsessed with the future, obsessed with asking difficult questions, obsessed with preparing for possibilities others ignored. That obsession continued driving him forward. Yet beneath the achievements, beneath the headlines, beneath the growing influence, another challenge was emerging. Success had not simplified life. It had made life more complicated. More responsibilities, more pressure, more expectations. The stakes continued increasing. Millions of people now watched his companies. Investors watched. Governments watched. Competitors watched. And every major decision carried enormous consequences. The entrepreneur who once slept on office floors had become one of the most closely watched business leaders on Earth. But the biggest tests were still ahead, because Tesla was about to enter one of the most dangerous periods in its history. A period so difficult that many insiders later described it as production hell. A period that would push Elon Musk to his physical and emotional limits. A period where success and failure would once again hang by a thread. And this time, the entire world would be watching. Success looks glamorous from a distance. People see the headlines. They see the wealth. They see the achievements. What they rarely see are the sleepless nights, the fear, the pressure, and the moments when everything feels like it's falling apart. For Elon Musk, one of those moments was about to arrive, and it would become one of the most brutal chapters of his entire career. Tesla had survived years of skepticism. The company had proven that electric vehicles could attract attention. It had demonstrated innovation. It had built excitement. But now came the challenge that separates great ideas from great companies: mass production. The goal was ambitious. Tesla wanted to produce electric vehicles on a scale that could truly change the automotive industry. That meant building cars faster, cheaper, more efficiently, and in far greater numbers than ever before. At the center of this effort stood one vehicle. A vehicle Elon believed could bring electric transportation to a much larger audience: the Tesla Model 3. The expectations were enormous. Customers placed reservations. Investors celebrated. The media followed every development. For Tesla, this wasn't just another car. It was a test of survival. If production succeeded, Tesla could transform the industry. If production failed, the consequences could be devastating. At first, optimism was everywhere. The future seemed bright. Demand appeared strong. The vision looked achievable. Then reality arrived. Manufacturing problems emerged. Assembly lines struggled. Automation systems failed to perform as expected. Bottlenecks appeared throughout the production process. Targets were missed. Schedules slipped. Pressure intensified. Every delay created new challenges. Every challenge created new expenses. The situation grew increasingly serious. Inside Tesla, employees worked relentlessly. Many spent extraordinary hours trying to solve problems. Deadlines felt impossible. Expectations remained enormous. The pressure became relentless. Elon later referred to this period as production hell. The name was not an exaggeration. There were moments when the future of the company seemed uncertain. Moments when failure felt frighteningly close. And Elon placed himself directly in the middle of the battle. Instead of managing from a distance, he spent countless hours inside factories, walking production lines, examining problems, meeting engineers, looking for solutions. Sleeping at the factory became common, not because it was comfortable, because time mattered. Every hour mattered. Every day mattered. Tesla was fighting for survival once again. And this battle was happening in public. The world watched every setback. Every missed target generated headlines. Every challenge became a story. Critics argued that Tesla's ambitions exceeded reality. Analysts predicted collapse. Short sellers doubled down on their belief that the company would fail. The skepticism grew louder, yet Elon continued pushing forward, not because success was guaranteed, but because he believed quitting would guarantee failure. The pressure began affecting every aspect of life. Interviews revealed exhaustion. Public appearances revealed stress. The burden of responsibility had become enormous. Thousands of employees depended on Tesla's success. Customers depended on Tesla's products. Investors depended on Tesla's future. And Elon carried that weight every day. There are moments in every great story when the outcome remains uncertain. This was one of those moments. The company stood between two possible futures. One future led toward growth and transformation. The other led toward disappointment and collapse. Nobody knew which path awaited. Then slowly something began changing. The production lines improved. Problems were solved. Efficiency increased. Vehicle output grew. The impossible targets that once seemed unreachable started becoming reality. One breakthrough led to another. Momentum returned. Confidence returned. Hope returned. Tesla began delivering vehicles at a pace many thought impossible just months earlier. The company had survived one of its most dangerous tests. And once again, Elon Musk had escaped a crisis that many believed would destroy him. But surviving a crisis doesn't end scrutiny. Sometimes it increases it, because now expectations become even higher. As Tesla expanded, its influence grew dramatically. The company became synonymous with the electric vehicle revolution. Competitors who once dismissed electric transportation began changing strategies. Traditional automakers started investing billions into electric programs. The industry was shifting. The future was arriving. And Tesla had helped accelerate it. Around the world, people began viewing electric vehicles differently. Not as compromises, not as experiments, but as serious alternatives. The impact extended far beyond a single company. Tesla had influenced an entire industry. Yet Elon wasn't focused solely on automobiles. While Tesla expanded, SpaceX continued making remarkable progress. Launch after launch increased confidence. Technological breakthroughs accumulated. The company pursued one of its most ambitious goals yet: reusable rockets. For decades, rockets had largely been treated as disposable machines. They launched once and were gone. Imagine throwing away an airplane after every flight. The costs would be enormous. Elon believed rockets could be reused. Many experts considered the idea unrealistic. The engineering challenges were immense. The precision required was extraordinary. Yet SpaceX pursued the goal relentlessly. Then came one of the most unforgettable moments in modern aerospace history. A rocket booster descended from the sky, controlled, guided, precise, and landed upright. The images stunned audiences around the world. What once seemed impossible suddenly looked real. The achievement represented more than technological success. It represented a shift in thinking, a reminder that assumptions can be challenged, that accepted limitations can be overcome. That progress often begins when someone refuses to accept conventional wisdom. SpaceX continued building upon that momentum. Larger rockets, more ambitious missions, more advanced technologies. The company transformed from an underdog into a dominant force within the aerospace industry. Governments paid attention. Competitors paid attention. The entire world paid attention. And as Elon Musk's influence expanded, so did the debate surrounding him. Few public figures generated stronger reactions. Supporters admired his willingness to take risks. They praised his vision. They celebrated his achievements. Critics questioned his management style. They challenged his decisions. They scrutinized his public statements. The conversation surrounding Elon became increasingly polarized, yet regardless of opinion, his impact remained undeniable. He had helped reshape multiple industries. He had pushed technologies forward. He had challenged assumptions that many considered permanent. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of his journey was that he still viewed his greatest goals as unfinished. Many people would have been satisfied. Many people would have slowed down. Many people would have focused on protecting what they had already built. Elon continued looking toward bigger horizons: Mars, artificial intelligence, energy transformation, human civilization's long-term future. His ambitions remained enormous, maybe even larger than before. And those ambitions would soon lead him into some of the most controversial and influential chapters of his life, because the next phase of Elon Musk's story would extend far beyond cars and rockets. It would place him at the center of global conversations about technology, free speech, artificial intelligence, and the future of humanity itself. The entrepreneur who once dreamed while reading books in South Africa was about to become one of the most influential and debated individuals on the planet. And what happened next would be even more surprising than everything that came before. By this point, Elon Musk was no longer simply a businessman. He had become something much larger, a symbol, a disruptor, a visionary to some, a controversial figure to others, and one of the most talked about people in the world. Every statement he made could move markets. Every tweet could generate global headlines. Every decision attracted intense attention. The world had become fascinated by Elon Musk. But fame comes with a price. The larger the spotlight becomes, the harder it is to hide mistakes. The harder it becomes to avoid criticism. The harder it becomes to separate public perception from reality. And Elon was about to experience that reality on a scale few people could imagine. While Tesla continued expanding and SpaceX continued achieving milestone after milestone, another technological revolution was beginning to accelerate. Artificial intelligence. For decades, AI had existed mostly in research labs and science fiction stories. But advances in computing power, data processing, and machine learning were rapidly changing what was possible. Elon watched these developments closely, very closely. Unlike many people who focused only on the immediate benefits of AI, Elon often discussed something else: the long-term consequences. He repeatedly argued that artificial intelligence could become one of the most important technologies ever created, potentially the most beneficial, potentially the most dangerous. The idea sparked debate across the technology world. Some experts agreed, others disagreed. But Elon believed humanity needed to take the subject seriously because history had taught him something important. The technologies that change civilization rarely arrive with warning labels. They arrive quietly. Then they change everything. His concerns about AI became part of a broader mission, thinking about humanity's future, thinking about civilization's survival, thinking about challenges that extend far beyond one company or one generation. To Elon, the future wasn't something that simply happens. It was something people built, or failed to build, and he wanted to influence its direction. Meanwhile, SpaceX continued pushing boundaries at a pace that amazed even longtime industry observers. The company launched satellites, delivered cargo, transported astronauts, achieved technical milestones that once seemed impossible. Each success strengthened confidence in the company's long-term vision, but one goal stood above all others: Mars. For Elon, Mars was never merely a destination. It was a symbol of possibility, a symbol of survival, a symbol of humanity's next chapter. He frequently described the importance of becoming a multi-planetary species, not because Earth lacks value, but because relying on a single planet carries risks. Throughout history, civilizations have disappeared. Species have vanished. Disasters have occurred. Elon believed humanity should build a backup plan, a second home among the stars. To many people, the concept sounded absurd. To Elon, it sounded practical. And so SpaceX began developing increasingly powerful rocket systems capable of supporting that vision. The scale of the challenge was difficult to comprehend. Transporting humans to Mars would require breakthroughs in engineering, logistics, energy systems, and life support technologies. It would demand enormous resources, enormous patience, enormous courage. Yet SpaceX continued moving forward, step by step, launch by launch, milestone by milestone. And while the company pursued interplanetary ambitions, Tesla continued reshaping transportation on Earth. Electric vehicles became increasingly common. What once seemed experimental became mainstream. Major automakers invested heavily in electric platforms. Governments introduced policies encouraging cleaner transportation. Consumer attitudes evolved. The automotive landscape began changing faster than ever. Tesla's influence could be seen almost everywhere. The company that many critics once expected to fail had helped accelerate a global transformation. For Elon, it represented validation, not proof that every decision had been correct, but proof that bold ideas could become reality, even when they appeared impossible. Yet success brought new challenges. Growth created complexity. Influence created responsibility. Visibility created pressure. And controversy never seemed far away. Public debates surrounding Elon intensified. Supporters viewed him as someone willing to challenge outdated systems. Someone willing to take risks others avoided. Someone willing to pursue ambitious goals. Critics argued that his methods could be unpredictable. That some statements created unnecessary conflict. That influence should be exercised more carefully. The discussions became increasingly passionate, increasingly divided, and increasingly global. But perhaps that was inevitable. People who challenge powerful assumptions rarely produce neutral reactions. They inspire admiration, they inspire skepticism, sometimes both at the same time. History is filled with figures who generated strong opinions, inventors, explorers, entrepreneurs, leaders, people who pushed beyond accepted boundaries. Elon Musk had joined that list. Whether celebrated or criticized, he had become impossible to ignore. As the years progressed, his personal wealth increased dramatically. At various points, he became one of the richest individuals on Earth. The headlines were astonishing. The numbers seemed unreal, yet those numbers often distracted from a deeper story. Because Elon rarely behaved like someone focused solely on accumulating wealth, again and again, he reinvested resources into ambitious projects. Again and again, he pursued goals carrying substantial risk. Again and again, he focused on building rather than preserving. That approach distinguished him from many traditional business leaders, and it also explained why his journey remained unpredictable. No one could accurately predict what he would do next, sometimes not even his closest observers. Then another unexpected chapter emerged, a chapter involving communication, information, and the digital public square. The internet had already transformed society. Social media had transformed communication. Platforms now influenced politics, culture, business, and public discourse across the globe. Elon increasingly became interested in these developments, interested in how information flows, interested in how conversations are shaped, interested in how technology influences public debate. The discussions surrounding these issues grew louder. The stakes grew higher, and eventually, Elon would make one of the most surprising moves of his career. Tiernomelmans Datasiotinus, a move that would once again place him at the center of the worldwide attention. But beneath every headline, beneath every controversy, beneath every achievement, the same question continued driving him forward. What does the future look like? And more importantly, how do we get there? That question had guided him since childhood, when he was a lonely boy reading books and imagining distant worlds, when he was a young entrepreneur sleeping in offices, when he was risking everything to keep SpaceX alive, when Tesla stood on the edge of collapse. And now, after becoming one of the most influential figures on Earth, the question remained unchanged. The future, the next frontier, the next impossible challenge. Because Elon Musk's story was never really about money, never really about fame, never really about power. It was about possibility, the belief that tomorrow can be better than today, the belief that impossible problems can be solved, the belief that humanity's greatest achievements may still lie ahead, and the next chapter of his journey would test those beliefs more than ever before, because some of his biggest decisions, biggest controversies, and biggest ambitions were still waiting ahead. There is a strange pattern that appears throughout history. The people who change the world are rarely viewed as ordinary during their own time. They are often misunderstood, questioned, criticized, celebrated, sometimes all on the same day. And by the early 2020s, Elon Musk had become one of those people. No matter where you lived, chances were you knew his name. Whether through Tesla vehicles driving down city streets, through SpaceX rockets launching into the sky, through social media discussions, through news headlines, or through endless debates about the future. Elon Musk had become a global phenomenon. But the higher someone rises, the stronger the winds become. And the years ahead would prove that success does not eliminate challenges. It often creates new ones. As Tesla grew into one of the most valuable automotive companies in the world, expectations reached extraordinary levels. Investors expected growth, customers expected innovation, employees expected leadership, the public expected headlines. And Elon continued operating under a microscope. Every statement was analyzed. Every action was examined. Every decision became a conversation. Yet despite the pressure, his companies continued achieving milestones that once seemed impossible. SpaceX expanded its launch capabilities. Reusable rockets became increasingly routine. What once looked like science fiction was becoming reality. Rocket boosters returned to Earth with remarkable precision. Astronaut missions demonstrated the company's growing capabilities. Launch frequency increased dramatically. The aerospace industry was changing, and SpaceX stood at the center of that transformation. Then came another ambitious project. A project designed not merely to launch rockets, but to create an entire network surrounding Earth. A constellation of satellites capable of providing internet connectivity across vast regions of the planet. The vision was enormous. The execution was difficult, but once again, SpaceX moved forward. The company launched satellites at a pace few organizations could match. The scale was astonishing. Thousands of satellites, thousands of technical challenges, thousands of opportunities for failure. Yet progress continued. Meanwhile, Elon remained focused on Mars, the dream that had followed him for decades. The dream many people still considered unrealistic, the dream that refused to disappear. At SpaceX facilities, engineers worked on increasingly powerful spacecraft systems, massive rockets, advanced engines, technologies designed for missions far beyond Earth. Every prototype represented another step toward a future that seemed impossible to many observers. Some failed dramatically. Explosions occurred. Tests ended unexpectedly. Videos spread across the internet. Critics mocked the setbacks. But SpaceX viewed failure differently. Each failure provided data. Each failure created lessons. Each lesson improved future designs. The philosophy was simple: fail, learn, improve, repeat. And over time, the results became impossible to ignore. But while SpaceX pushed toward the stars, another challenge emerged much closer to home. The world itself was changing rapidly. Technology was evolving faster than ever. Artificial intelligence was becoming increasingly powerful. Digital communication was reshaping societies. Political divisions were growing in many countries. Public trust in institutions was being questioned. The internet had connected humanity in unprecedented ways. Yet it had also created new problems, new tensions, new uncertainties. Elon increasingly found himself participating in conversations extending far beyond engineering and business. Conversations about free expression, technology governance, information systems, the future direction of society. Supporters applauded his willingness to challenge conventional thinking. Critics argued that some positions generated unnecessary controversy. The debates intensified. The headlines multiplied. And Elon remained one of the most discussed individuals on the planet. Yet beneath the public discussions, the entrepreneur inside him remained active. Always searching, always building, always looking for the next challenge. Because innovation had become more than a career. It had become part of his identity. Throughout his life, Elon repeatedly pursued opportunities where failure seemed likely. Not because he enjoyed failure, because he believed meaningful progress often requires uncomfortable risks. That philosophy appeared again and again. With PayPal, with Tesla, with SpaceX, and with many other ventures. Sometimes the risks paid off. Sometimes they created setbacks. But the pattern remained constant. Move forward. Adapt. Keep building. As the years passed, people around the world began debating an increasingly important question. How should history remember Elon Musk? As a visionary entrepreneur? As a revolutionary innovator? As a controversial public figure? As a combination of all three? The answer depended largely on who you asked, and perhaps it still does. Because unlike many historical figures, Elon Musk's story is not finished. It is still unfolding. The final verdict has not yet been written. Future achievements may reshape how people view him. Future failures may reshape how people view him. Future generations may interpret his impact differently than those living today. That uncertainty makes his story unique. We are not looking backward at a completed legacy. We are watching one being created in real time. Every launch, every vehicle, every technology, every decision. Another piece of a larger story. A story that began with a curious child reading books in South Africa. A child fascinated by science fiction. A child asking questions about the future. Questions that would eventually influence industries worth trillions of dollars. Questions that would inspire millions of people around the world. Questions that would lead to rockets, electric vehicles, artificial intelligence discussions, and dreams of other planets. Yet perhaps the most remarkable aspect of Elon Musk's journey is not any single company, not any single product, not any single achievement. It is persistence, the refusal to stop after failure, the refusal to surrender after criticism, the refusal to abandon ambitious goals because they appear difficult. That persistence transformed a bullied child into a global entrepreneur. It transformed unlikely ideas into world-changing companies. And it transformed imagination into reality. But before we reach the end of this story, one final question remains. What is Elon Musk's true legacy? Is it the companies he built? The technologies he accelerated? The industries he transformed? The risks he took? Or is it something deeper? Something larger than any rocket, vehicle, or business? The answer lies in the final chapter. Because the most important lesson from Elon Musk's journey is not found in his wealth, not found in his fame, not found in the headlines. It is found in the mindset that carried him through impossible odds, and that mindset may ultimately become his greatest contribution of all. At the end of every extraordinary life story, there comes a moment when the achievements are counted, the companies are measured, the wealth is calculated, the records are examined, the headlines are remembered. But the most important question is often much simpler. What changed because this person existed? For Elon Musk, the answer is impossible to summarize in a single sentence, because his story was never about one industry, one invention, or one company. It was about challenging assumptions, again and again. Throughout history, entire civilizations have advanced because someone questioned what others accepted as impossible. Someone challenged the limits. Someone refused to believe that the future had already been decided. Elon Musk built his entire life around that idea. When many people believed electric vehicles would remain a niche product, he pushed forward. When many believed private companies could never compete seriously in space exploration, he pushed forward. When experts listed reasons why something couldn't be done, he often responded by asking a different question. What if it can? That question became the foundation of everything. Not certainty, not guarantees, possibility. The possibility that transportation could be cleaner, the possibility that rockets could be reusable, the possibility that humanity could become a multi-planetary species, the possibility that technology could solve problems once considered permanent. Whether every vision ultimately succeeds remains unknown, but history rarely rewards people for predicting the future perfectly. History remembers those who forced the future to move faster. And Elon Musk undeniably accelerated conversations that once seemed distant. Before Tesla, electric vehicles were often treated as an afterthought. Today, they represent one of the most significant transformations in modern transportation. Before SpaceX, reusable rockets seemed unrealistic to many observers. Today, they are reshaping the economics of spaceflight. Before discussions about becoming a multi-planetary species entered mainstream conversation, they were largely confined to science fiction. Today, millions of people seriously discuss the possibility that influence extends far beyond products, far beyond companies, far beyond markets, because ideas spread. And once an idea takes hold, it can change the direction of entire industries. Yet no honest story about Elon Musk would be complete without acknowledging complexity. The path was never smooth. The journey was never universally admired. The decisions were not universally praised. His career generated controversy alongside innovation, criticism alongside admiration, debate alongside achievement. Some viewed his methods as unconventional. Others viewed them as necessary. Some celebrated his boldness. Others questioned his approach. And perhaps that is inevitable for people who operate at the edge of possibility. Innovation often creates disagreement. Disruption often creates resistance. The future rarely arrives without controversy. But regardless of perspective, one reality remains difficult to deny. Elon Musk influenced the direction of multiple industries. He challenged powerful assumptions, and he inspired countless entrepreneurs, engineers, scientists, and dreamers to think bigger, much bigger. The young boy who once escaped into books eventually helped inspire a generation to imagine futures that seemed impossible. That may be one of the most remarkable transformations of all, because imagination has always been humanity's greatest superpower. Every skyscraper, every airplane, every computer, every scientific breakthrough, every great achievement in history existed as an idea before it became reality, and Elon never stopped believing in the power of ideas. Even when others doubted, even when others laughed, even when others predicted failure. Perhaps that is the lesson hidden beneath the headlines, the lesson hidden beneath the billions, the lesson hidden beneath the rockets and electric vehicles. Progress often begins with a person willing to look foolish, a person willing to risk failure, a person willing to believe in something before the rest of the world can see it. Elon Musk spent much of his life being that person. Sometimes he succeeded spectacularly. Sometimes he failed publicly. Sometimes he did both in the same year, but he kept moving forward. And that persistence became one of the defining themes of his story. Not perfection. Persistence, not certainty. Persistence, not comfort. Persistence, because every major breakthrough in his life emerged after moments when quitting would have been easier. After the bullying, after the rejections, after the failed launches, after the financial crises, after the production nightmares, after the criticism, after the doubt. Again and again the story could have ended. Again and again it continued. And perhaps that is why millions of people find his journey fascinating. Not because they want to build rockets, not because they want to manufacture cars, not because they want to become billionaires, but because they recognize something universal. The struggle between fear and ambition, the battle between doubt and belief, the choice between accepting limits and challenging them. That struggle exists in every human life. The scale may differ. The circumstances may differ, but the challenge remains the same. Will you retreat when obstacles appear? Or will you continue moving forward? Elon Musk answered that question repeatedly throughout his life, and regardless of how history ultimately judges him, those answers change the world. As we look toward the future, one thing remains certain. The story is not over. New technologies will emerge. New challenges will appear. New controversies will unfold. New achievements may be waiting. The final chapters have not yet been written. Perhaps one day humans will walk on Mars. Perhaps reusable spacecraft will become as common as commercial airplanes. Perhaps technologies still in their infancy will reshape civilization once again. No one knows exactly what the future holds. But if Elon Musk's life teaches us anything, it is this: the future does not belong to those who wait for it. The future belongs to those who build it. And somewhere right now, a young child is probably sitting alone with a book, asking impossible questions, dreaming impossible dreams, imagining a future nobody else can see, just as Elon Musk once did. And history has a way of surprising the people who underestimate dreamers.